We're here with the Mattson2, Jared and Jonathan.
What's up?
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and figure out a little bit more about what you got going on here. You guys are from San
Dimas? No, just kidding. No, we're from Encinitas,
oh,
but which is a part of San Diego. Yeah.
And are you born and raised there?
Yeah,
or?
born and raised.
Awesome.
We grew up in Encinitas, and then 2 years later we moved to a little town in Central California called Los Osos, which means the bears, which they didn't have any bears anymore when we lived there.
Damn.
And then we moved back to Encinitas about like 6 years later.
Cool.
And we've lived there pretty much the whole time.
Damn, nice. Very cool.
We were 15. 15 when we started playing as a drums and guitar duo, and that was right in high school. It's kind of weird because we both started on guitar when we were 12, and then I was progressing at a pretty normal rate, and then got super into it, and Jonathan kind of wasn't feeling the guitar.
Yeah.
So by the time I reached 15 years old, I was like a really good, I was a competent guitar player in high school and stuff.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is that Jonathan, he said we started playing, when we were 15. I think our drinks have arrived, Jared. Oh, our drinks are here. Right.
What are we working with here? Some gin-based drinks. What we got?
There you go.
What is
got
this one?
3 different drinks. That's a Chinar and Dry Vermouth.
Oh, beautiful.
This
Grazie
is
mille.
a Corpse Reviver, and that is a Bicycle Thief.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll try this one. Yeah. So we've had like an amazing luxury of not ever really having a day job, because when we were 15 we started playing at just random little coffee shops, and like after that point we didn't really need a summer job, because we just play a bunch of random little local coffee shops. When we were like 15, our parents would like drive us to the show.
Sweet.
We'd play. What I was getting at though is he's such a natural drummer that it took me 3 years to get good at guitar, until I was 15 years old, from 12 years old. He was trying to figure out what he was getting into. He tried singing a little bit. He tried bass. Tried mandolin. And he just didn't like anything. And then finally there was this drum kit at my brother's house, my older brother. He was actually skating for the Zero team at the time.
Oh, cool.
In 1999.
Damn.
And they lived in this, like, him and his roommates lived in this like punker house that was about ready to be demolished.
Yeah.
So the landlord said you could basically do anything to the house you want. So you walk inside it, just graffiti everywhere inside the house.
Punk establishment.
Yeah. Amazing.
100%.
And the Southern California skate scene at the time was a very powerful cultural kind of movement. That's actually even though we don't skate anymore, but that's kind of what we grew up around. And all the skate movies, we lived across the street from Jamie Thomas, so yeah. all the skate movies had like the best music in the world.
Oh yeah.
So
course.
we just
Tony
were like,
Hawk's
whoa.
Underground, like that's one of the best soundtracks. Like
Oh yeah, great game.
Dude.
So it only took him about 3 months to be a very competent drummer.
Yeah.
To where we started playing shows together. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Only a few months later.
Just kind of like a quick transition, like you kind of just fit into.
Because I just got my passion. I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Damn. And what were you listening to at the time? Because as a jazz outfit, and I've seen other interviews with you guys where you've kind of gone into multiple different influences,
Totally
spanning across multiple genres. For that period of time, what was like the biggest thing that had you guys playing music? What was inspiring you the most?
The brief moment for me was Modest Mouse, the fruit that ate itself.
Nice.
The drumming was amazing on that.
Record, man.
But then very, very soon after that is when our father introduced us to John Coltrane, Giant Steps.
Yeah.
And that's what got us into jazz. And so we learned jazz from a vacuum, like the 2 and 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We thought that was 1, 2, 3, 4, but the when you organize the beat, you count the 1, 2, 3, 4 for a lot of stuff. Depending on what time signature you're in, but we thought that was the 1, 2, 3, but it was really double time. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we learned, basically what I'm saying is like we learned it from a vacuum, and we were playing had no idea what we were doing. We were playing it completely wrong, and we were like in sort of like a rock battle of the bands type way. We would just like listen to the jazz music and try to learn it by ear, which is crazy,
ridiculous.
And we had no idea what we were doing, but we would just like started playing shows that way, and got a lot of people coming to the shows. And then when we realized we were doing it the wrong way, we were like, oh shoot, we already have like an established audience, but we need to like relearn how to do this the right way. So we both got private teachers. I got an amazing jazz drum teacher, and he got a guitar teacher.
Nice.
And so we like kind of relearned how to do it the right way. And then
there's a video of you guys. You're playing in almost like a clothing shop. Is that like a PacSun, or is it like a
good question.
shop?
That was Vans off the wall. We did
Congrats.
we did these cool outreach programs for Vans where we performed in the Vans stores to sort of promote the brand, and obviously you're representing a cool company because they're like funding you to do these tours and they're trying to spread their grassroots approach to the mall scene.
Yeah.
And like, so we would do like these concerts and give away like a free guitar, free skate deck, it was called Get Out and Do Something tour, where they would.
So you guys were endorsed by bands
for that tour, yeah. But
awesome.
our buddy Ray Barbie, he's full sponsorship by them.
Yeah.
He's a pro skater still.
Now, and you were just talking about John Coltrane before, like as far as influences. Do you have any other noticeable people from jazz, from rock, surf, really anything that have kind of given you parts of your flavor that you have now?
Okay, so yeah, you were asking about like how we always been a duo,
yeah,
and this kind of plays into that, because we actually always wanted to have like a full band. We didn't ever think of ourselves as a duo. Like it was more like we'd have to like play in our garage together. And me mentally, I don't know if John felt the same way, but I always thought it was like, oh, we're just practicing. This is actually not what it is. We're gonna be practicing, and we're gonna get another guitar player from the school, a bass player from the school, and then we're gonna get together. That's gonna be the band.
Yeah,
you know?
because you always think in terms of full sound. You know, you look back in time, everybody's got like 4 or 5 people in the band. They're all playing their part.
Exactly. So like that kind of thing, and then we finally end up finding some players. We put them, and they're good. But we joined the Battle of the Bands, and I'm gonna make this super short because this is way too long of a story. But Battle of the Bands, we did our rock thing. We all original music, but it was very inspired by like Modest Mouse, but I was like a huge Randy Rhoads fan at the time too, so I was like doing lead guitar stuff as well, which was rad. But we did the audition, and we didn't even make the audition. We didn't even enter the contest at all. That was sophomore year. No, that was freshman year. And then sophomore year, tail end of freshman, we started getting into jazz quite a bit. And then so we made this pact. We're like, okay, next time we do Battle of Bands, we're just going to do jazz. Who cares? Because we came from this like punk kind of element anyways, where it was kind of like outrageous and, you know, kind of the counterculture a little bit.
And schools have a history with hating the counterculture elements of punk. Like, they always go like classically trained people all the time. Yeah.
So we view jazz in that same light. We were like, jazz is kind of like outrageous and extreme because no one really is into jazz. So if we got into jazz, it was kind of like a superficial thing at first. Yeah. But then we actually started falling in love with the music, because it was, for us, it was more about image at first. And then once you get into jazz, it was kind of about that. And then it like quickly got away from that when we started actually learning how to play our instruments and doing this stuff. So long story short, we auditioned in sophomore year and got into the Battle of the Bands competition. Yeah. We actually ended up winning like first place. So that was a good like impetus to keep doing jazz, because we're like, oh wow, our rock wasn't related to anyone, but our jazz was. The duo thing, we'd always want a bass player, and we'd like find these cool bass players, but they'd always like leave town, go to college, or move away. And so we'd always be losing bass players. Mm-hmm. And then we were at this LA show playing together as a duo, because we had just lost our bass player, so we had to play as a duo. And Ray Barbie was there, and he was playing solo by himself, but he had this loop pedal and all these other pedals, and I was like, dude, that's what I should do. I should start looping stuff. Yeah. But it was way easier said than done. But to this day, that's how we get our sound, is through the loop pedal. Yeah. But when you're asking about influences, I feel like the next influence after Coltrane that made a groundbreaking evolution for us was Tortoise, TNT. Yeah. Because the whole
huge.
Yeah, dude. Because the whole jazz phase we got into, we got completely narrow-minded. We Jared didn't listen to Randy Rhoads anymore. We just threw everyone aside, and we're only listening to jazz. But then when we heard the way Tortoise incorporates jazz to their music, that's all I started listening to. I'm like, man, that's cool that they don't try to fit the mold of a certain genre. We were at a recent the Arts and Lectures series in San Francisco. We were watching a J.J. Abrams talk, and my buddy Andy Cruz and J.J. Abrams are good friends, and Andy Cruz from House Industries released a book, and J.J. Abrams wrote the foreword, so they were doing a little panel discussion, and they were talking about style. Yeah. And the minute you try to always stay to a style, that's when you lose. They're talking about that's how you kind of lose your originality, because the way you get the amazing sound or the amazing style that you have is because you're unencumbered and you're not trying to fit with anything. Actually, at that same talk that he was talking about, where we were watching J.J. Abrams, when they had ended, our manager was there hanging out with us, and we were talking outside, and I said, dude, I just realized that there's an International Jazz Day. It's a celebration every year.
Wait, really?
Yeah. And last year it was on April 31st. And it changes every year. Maybe it's based on the lunar calendar or something. But it's not the same. It's not the same day every year.
Yeah.
And so long story short, I was like, Fred, we should do something special at the chapel. That's the venue that we like to play in San Francisco for International Jazz Day. And then he's like, oh, great idea. What record should we do? Should we do like a Thelonious Monk record or something like that? I'm like, yeah, that would be rad. Let's think about it. But when I came to Jonathan with the idea, he's like, well, we need to do an album that doesn't just sound like you're playing standards, that sounds like you're actually telling a story, telling a narrative. Because if you just do like a monk tune here, a monk tune there, a monk tune here, it's like, it's rad, but it's just a collection of songs. And that's how a lot of those jazz records were. It was like a repertoire and just a collection of standards and songs and originals, which is rad. But Jonathan said a Love Supreme, and immediately was like, that's perfect. That was like one of the first combo jazz records ever that actually told a narrative. It was meant to be listened to from beginning to end. It's a 4-movement work. You can't isolate each of the movements because they're meant to be listened to
as a whole.
And so that's like the perfect framework for a show. It's also like really close to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like a Love Supreme people, there's a following that far transcends a jazz audience, which is So full circle. Yeah. Our first jazz record we ever got was Coltrane, Giant Steps, and then now we're releasing an album next year of A Love Supreme. So.
Oh, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. Awesome.
This is the first time it's been heard. Yeah. That we're gonna do that.
Very cool. And I was also reading, Jared, that you had actually transcribed the solo, and you didn't base anything too much off of it. It was kind of just to get an understanding of how it worked.
Yeah.
Was that like a really kind of intimate experience for you?
It was super intimate. And although I was the one doing it, maybe because we're twins, or maybe just because we work so well together, but Jonathan was actually able to understand the headspace that we were trying to get in. And Jonathan was actually like, oh, dude, keep learning the solo because I really feel like you're getting into the Coltrane's headspace a little bit. Even though I'm not a jazz guitarist like Joe Pass or anything where I'm just learning run after run after run after run. But what's interesting about A Love Supreme is that when it first came out, the critics called it Chinese music because it's pentatonic.
Yeah. And
he was just playing these pentatonic scales over and over. Da, 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 like moving that up and down the different keys.
Yeah.
And that's right up any guitar player's alley. It's pentatonic.
Of course.
Which is amazing. And so the more I started listening to it and listening to McCoy's parts, how they're just this, I could go into it all day. But I basically transcribed the bass line and the saxophone and the piano lines. And
I did the drums.
You did the drums. Yeah. Which equals all three of those parts because the drums are so insane.
Yeah, it's so complex for the whole record, the whole time, just mind-shattering stuff.
And the icing on the cake was realizing actually Coltrane's approach to a lot of things, which was rehearse, practice, transcribe, play, transcribe solos from memory, all that stuff. But when you get to the gig, you forget everything and pretend like you never knew anything. And what's amazing about that is that the whole time you're practicing,
you formed your vocabulary with what you've been practicing.
That whole time you're practicing, it's almost like you're creating grooves in your brain for like ideas to fit into, and these grooves are just everywhere. They're all mapped out, but you can choose to stop playing them, but they're still there. So it's like the point is to forget everything, internalize it, but because you internalize it, this purely original stuff comes out that's still in that zone.
I think collaboration is for us. It's about the inspiration that you get from collaboration. There's a composer that we both like really admire named Ruichi Sakamoto from Japan.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the importance of collaboration is you partner up with someone that does something that you can't do. So they offer things to your music and you offer things to their music, and it creates this composite which you couldn't have created without that person. That's the goal of a collaboration in my mind.
Yeah.
So that's why we have so many collaborations, because there's artists that we enjoy what they do and we want to enhance each other's, output of music that we do.
That's it.
Thank you, Jared.
That's all the questions I have. At least on camera. I'll probably have a lot more for you off the camera.
Nice.
I won't
After
give
the
away
show.
the trademark secrets.
Nice.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Very
Jared.
much appreciated. Jared,
Pleasure,
Jonathan, they're going to be playing tonight. So we should some live videos happening from that. You can look on our YouTube and our website to find links to those. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got more coming to you. Stay tuned. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you at the show. Bye.